Folks, I think something is becoming very, very clear to me, and that is buying vending machines is a wonderful first business for W-2 employees. I'm seeing more and more folks turn to vending. It obviously offers some year one tax advantages because it allows you to write off the purchase. You can still get loans. Also, it is not something that, generally speaking, will consume your time. A lot of your time. Also, if you are a parent of maybe some teenage kids or whatnot, you can actually do this together. Thought I'd have a conversation with Bo Eckstein, the concierge to small business lending, really somebody that even introduced the idea of buying vending machines as a business. Bo, I know a lot of people in the one rental at a time community are interested in starting, getting that plan B, if you will. Why is vending a very easy first yes answer?
Well, I think it's all about gateways, and it's a confidence builder, and it's a good way to start in a business, which isn't like which you don't need a lot of employees. It's you spend about 1 hour per week per machine. If you have kids, you could build them into the business. You could get them to be doing everything, understanding the P&Ls, understanding how money works within business. And then also, yeah, because you're buying these machines, there's some tax advantages for sure. And then you transition over to the being a business owner, which then creates opportunities for lots of other advantages, like setting up self-directed retirement vehicles, which then you can invest in real estate through and do a lot of stuff. So it's a non-threatening business. It's simple. You don't need employees. You don't need a space to put these machines. You're getting assistance on locating the locations. You'll build skills in this business because you're going to be operating the P&L. You're going to understand numbers, what a P&L is, what a balance sheet is, and then you're going to strategically expand by adding more machines. And then we're also getting into other vending type of business models like micro marts. We're getting into coffee vending. We have a franchise model that I like too, which is does coffee for corporations or companies. It's coffee subscription service. This is actual franchise, but it's a similar concept. You can run the semi-absentee because basically you get into an IBM or an Apple or whatever type of business, or just a mom and pop business with 100 employees. Now everybody's going back to work, so instead of having those pods, they have to get recycled, and it's like you actually your job as this franchise owner is to place the machines at these companies, and then it's coffee as a subscription, meaning the employer pays for it, so it's like 90 cents a cup. So every time somebody gets a cup, it's 90 cents. So it's very sticky, 95% recurring revenue. So I'm looking at more and more of these types of businesses. We have another business that does, which is similar to vending. So these types of businesses, in my opinion, have always been the most attractive to me. Things that are simple and you don't need to manage a bunch of people. Now, if you have skill sets where you want to go manage, there's obviously hundreds and hundreds of ideas to get you into the business. But vending to me is a great way to get started, to build cash flow, and then take that cash flow, invest in real estate, and get all the other benefits of owning a business versus just being a W-2 employee by itself.
No, I love that. I just want to make sure I kind of understand the picture because, again, a lot of people that follow me were me, meaning a W-2 employee, decent income, family life, very busy. So if I were to, set up a call with you, again, on the screen, folks, onerentalmeeting.com, just go there to set up a 15-minute call. I could come to you, right? You have these relationships with multiple vending providers. I could buy 8, I could buy 10. They're going to help me place them. But where it really gets interesting to me is you're going to help me get a loan, right? So are we talking 90% of the purchase, 80%? What kind of loan value or LTV or whatever you call it? What are you going to get me?
Generally 90% up to 150. Yeah. Okay. 150.
So let's say it's $100,000. So you're going to get me $90,000. And because these are physical machines, as I understand the tax code today, I'm not a CPA, but you can tell me where I'm wrong, right? Or if we have to ask questions, I could potentially write off the entire purchase, which is $100,000, in this example against my taxes because it's an active business. Do I have that right, or am I missing some important points?
Yeah, I'm not a CPA, although I'm studying to become an enrolled agent for fun, and I don't know everything, and I'm just learning, But essentially, there's different caveats, but right, there's something called Section 179, and then there's also bonus depreciation. Bonus depreciation in 2022 or 23 was 100%. Now it's at 60. I think
Okay.
they're pushing for 100% again. Bonus depreciation you could offset anything with. Section 179 you can as well too, and it depends if you're married or not. There's ways to do it, and I just paid $254 because I wanted extreme clarity.
Yeah.
And I subscribe to a CPA's newsletter, and he breaks down all these things. So then you could take this
Nice.
information. I could bring it to my CPA and go, hey, can I do this? Can I do this? But yes, essentially, you can write off 100% of the machine. It just depends on how it comes onto your personal tax returns, the
Mm.
strategy behind those tips, and that's why you really need good CPAs as you're doing this. But
Yes.
I like businesses with equipment, with trucks, with and so because you're just buying because these vending businesses that we work with, they're not franchises, is a business opportunity
Right.
with both the platforms. The real cost is the machines you're buying. That's what you're
Right.
paying for, and that's you can write off the majority, 100% of it. So, yeah, and then you're going to go to your CPA with your unique situation. You're going to tell them,
Hmm.
hey, this is what I'm trying to do, and get with somebody who's aggressive and knows the tax rules, and then also research this stuff. I research it all day long because I'm like, oh, can I do this? Can I do that? Yes or no? It's pretty confusing, but there's overarching themes of like what can offset what, and as you
Sure.
learn this, it's your duty as a business professional or somebody who wants to increase their wealth to understand high level at least these strategies because this is a big piece. This is 30% of the
Yeah.
full equation.
Yeah, when I look at this picture, right, again, so first and foremost, it should be clear we're taking debt in this example, $90,000. However, that debt is going to be serviced by the vending machines. What gets interesting to me, again, talk to your CPA, which I would do, even if it's just 60%. That's 60 grand written against my income, which at my tax bracket back when I was, one of those guys, that's 30,000 bucks, right? It's 25 grand. So I'm getting into a deal taking 10 grand out of my account. I'm using bonus depreciation today to get 60%. That's going to be a net benefit of 25 grand at the end of the year. It's like, and then, assuming this is obviously the assumption and why due diligence is important, assuming the vending machines service the debt, it's a no-brainer. But this is why vending can be that entree or the little starter to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and also too, the thought process is you get in with vending, and then you say, "Hey, do you need coffee? We got a coffee.
Mhm.
Do you want a micro mart?" Right now, you can offer all these, and then you get better at this whole business, and then you start going, "Okay, well, I'm going to start placing my machines." And I know of a school, and you get into the school, and instead of an average machine doing an average gross revenue per month, it does a 2 or 3x of what an average is. And so when you get really good at that, um, that's where you start making bigger revenue. I remember I talked to one of your listeners, and he actually went independent, did himself, and he was placing in schools, and the numbers he was telling me were absolutely phenomenal. So
Wow.
there is an art to this that you'll learn. And so what I like about these business models, you get assigned a coach that actually operates the business. So it's like you're not in it alone. And the biggest thing why people don't pull the trigger on moving forward in anything is because they have doubt. And
Mm.
so having this support, that's why I always like these systems that have good infrastructure, because we all need a mentor or coach. If you get into real estate, doing it yourself and trying to do your first flip, if you don't know anything about construction, you're probably going to fail. But if you had somebody that mentored you, you're probably going to succeed. It's just the way things work. That's why we get coaches, and that's why we join, groups and things like that, is because we want that extra support to move it forward. I wanted to get better at equipment financing. I do a lot of SBA, but I'm like, equipment financing is very appealing to me.
Mm.
So I was just at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and one of the guys presenting, I was like, look, I was like, do you mentor? Right. And I just he gave me his card. I just emailed him the other day. He responded back today. He's like, yeah, if you want to do 8 hours, here's my fee that I charge, and we'll break them up. And I go, okay, well, that's fine, because he charged, like, it's something, it broke out to, like, I did the math on 8-hour package. It was like $350 an hour for him to mentor me. And I'm like, okay, that's a freaking great deal, because if
Yeah.
I paid what 8 times 350, whatever that number was, 20 something, 2000 something. But the point is that I go, that's like half a deal of me
Yeah.
closing a deal. Right. And so, like, to me, it's like a no brainer. So you have to, like, understand that, like, how do I fast track it? I want to point out one more thing. Within SBA, we can also build in working capital. So on this $100,000 deal you just explained, what if I built in $20,000 of working capital? Essentially, how
Yeah.
much do you actually have in there? Because you close and then you have that working capital. So that 10
Yep.
grand you actually outlaid, you get it kind of back in your pocket. Doesn't that make sense? So
Yeah.
you could actually do this for, like, net zero out of pocket if you have good credit, outside income that supports outside debt. So I look for businesses like that, especially if we're low liquidity right now. And, like,
Mm.
I talk to people all the time. They're making 135 grand a year. And I'm like, how much you have in your bank account? I got 2 grand. It's like, okay, well, we gotta do something. They realize that. And so
Yeah.
sometimes if you have a 401k at work, you can borrow up to 50% of that. So if you're,
Yep.
like, low, not that I want to put your last penny into anything, but
No.
I think if you're, like, that strapped for cash and you make 135 grand a year, you need to do something. And so, like, I was talking to a guy, I said, let's tap into your, it's up to you, but you might
Mm.
be able to tap into your 401k and use that as your down payment. So
I've certainly used my 401k throughout the years. When the deal made sense, why not use the capital now versus waiting till I was 65? So I've certainly done that on multiple occasions, multiple 401k loans. You also pay yourself back and all of that. But yeah, it's definitely individual specific. But I got to tell you, when I was in growth mode, that 401k was always open for business if I needed it.
yeah, yeah, it's I'm also looking at doing one of the business models we work with, and I've been very reluctant to do any of this, but one of my friends invested into it. I'm watching him do it, but it's basically a very passive investment into an e-com store. They build your store for you. And
Mm.
it's very interesting because it's really like an arbitrage of money. So I'm always exploring all of these things and seeing, like, what makes sense. And, like, I want to arbitrage and leverage in a good way, not in a bad way, so I can create more cash flow. And that's like, how
Yep.
do I get into my next property? How do I get into a business? But I think ultimately, if you're like, look, I'm so busy at work, but I do have some time. And if I bought 10 machines and I can allocate 10 hours, that's fine. That works with me. It's very predictable. I have to go to Costco and Sam's Club and get some sodas and protein
Mm.
bars. That's like really the extent of the business. And then you could build these routes up and you can sell them eventually for a multiple. So it's
There
not
you
like
go.
you have an exit strategy. And then ultimately, perhaps you have like, for example, my wife stays at home. I'm like, honey, like, when baby Bo grows up, like, you have a couple hours a week.
Yeah.
Most people want to be independent, because my wife is fortunate. She doesn't have to work, because I said, you don't have to work. And, like, but everybody wants to earn their own keep. Right. And, like, so for
Yep.
her, I'm like, don't be, she's ingrained to be an employee. I'm like, don't be
Mm.
an employee, be a business owner. That's what my mission is. Be a business owner. And even if we have to take multiple steps, that's why I came up with this gateway business concept. So
Yeah.
I'm putting together more and more gateway businesses, because I know that's the struggle people have. They're not ready to transition, but they want to create additional revenue. Instead of instead of you in California deciding to go buy some rental property in Indiana because it's cheaper and you think you're going to get cash flow, unless you're doing the 1 hour rental method, I would highly recommend not doing that, because I think you're going to end up saying, I shouldn't have done that. Because I'm personally speaking in that
From
tone.
personal experience.
Right. The cash flow is a myth. You're better off buying better housing stock in a radius of where you live. And if
Mhm.
you really think about it, even in SBA perspective, most banks say, look, we want you to run a business within a 2.5 hour radius. There's a reason why. There's more. It's proven that you'll be more successful if the business is closer to you. Now, once you get
Absolutely.
mature, like your business in Fresno is mature now, you could live anywhere, but you took 15 years to become mature. And in the beginning, you're not mature, so you need to do it closer to you. So not
Absolutely.
that Yeah, not that it doesn't work. That there's people that are successful investing out of state, but just my personal take on it.
There you go. Bo, if somebody want to reach out to you, get a taste of vending, see what the options are, buy a franchise, buy a business, where do we send them?
Go to onerentalmeeting.com. And what I would suggest, onerentalmeeting.com. I know vending sounds really attractive, and it is, in many ways, but I also think you should go through the process that we put you through. We're going to give you a business assessment, which is called the Zoracle. I'm certain that helps us determine, because there are other business models that once you understand will be a good fit. So don't just say, hey, I want vending. Let's go through the process of discovery. And then if it's vending, then at least it's vending. But if I'm showing you a few other businesses and you can say, you know what? My husband, my wife isn't working right now, and together we could run this business, and this business potentially could get me out of the W-2 job quicker. Let's at least explore that. That's all I ask. Let's explore these different business systems and then figure out what makes the most sense. Lastly, I'll shut up after this. I did help somebody get into vending, and now we're getting into a franchise after that. So like that's always an option too. It's not a one size fits all. We can own 2 or 3 different businesses. Obviously, you got a vending business is very doable to own another business because we understand the vending. So he did vending first, said, great, get the machines out, learn the business. Now I want to do a business. And so he's getting into commercial painting. So point is there's a lot of opportunity. So let's at least explore them first. And then if it ends up being vending, that's fine. We'll put you with the right vending business.
Love it. But onerentalmeeting.com, folks, he got that URL just for our community. Onerentalmeeting.com. Go there, book your time. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.